Welcome back to another episode. I've got a repeat guest today, Lia Garvin. Thanks for being on.
Thank you for having me back. So
Yeah.
to be here.
Last time, I feel like we maybe glossed over or didn't do justice on your background. Could you share a little bit more about like your, not just work experience, that sounds, I feel like that doesn't do it justice, but just some of your background in the places you've worked and the projects you've worked on, because I think that whenever we're around each other, to me, that always stands out as something that makes you so unique in the marketplace.
Thank you. Well, yeah. So I am known as the team whisperer because I spent about a decade driving team operations in companies like Google, Apple, Microsoft, Bank of America, and within product teams. So I say that because I love working with teams, but I don't have an HR background. I actually have that real operational, what are the timelines? How are getting things done? How are we removing the roadblocks? And so in that work and working on things like YouTube Shorts and iPhone 10 and, and augmented reality for many years, HoloLens, it really got a window into, what are the breakdowns on teams when they have all the resources in the world, right? Like when they have...
Yeah, there's no excuse.
There's no excuse, right? You're working at... When I was at Apple's, when they hit as the first $1 trillion company, why are people still not communicating, right? We could have any budgets, any people we wanted, anything, right? So I got really interested in team dynamics and, what were the differences when it seemed really easy to get things done and what was going on when that wasn't. And so I built a passion in kind of a way of driving team operations that was really people-centered. And it was really focused on, okay, are we having the right meetings? Are we talking about the right things? Are rules really clear? And a lot of times in that work, I got feedback like, why are you always dealing with the people stuff? Like, let's get the work done and deal with the people things later. And it just felt out of place to me. So I ended up deciding to leave, working internally and try to drive change on teams from the outside in. And so I still work with large companies like Google. I work with FIFA. But I also work with business owners and entrepreneurs because I found, as you found in your work, that a lot of these foundational things around how to work, we don't learn. Nobody teaches us.
Yeah.
Right?
I always say it's like the number one gap I see is nobody is taught the skill of prioritization.
Literally.
And it feels so like fundamental, but it is always such a like root cause of issues where I'm going, well, the problem is they don't know how to prioritize what comes first. I'm like, well, yeah, when is that really taught?
Yeah.
Like it's not taught in business school and it's not taught like at elementary level either.
Yeah. And if you're the decision maker, if you're the business owner, the corporate leader, what you think is most important, if you haven't taught that, if someone is like, how is anybody ever going to understand that?
Sure.
Right. And if you don't prioritize for them, they're going to come up with something that's probably not what you want. They're going to prioritize anyway. So you really want to get ahead of that.
Yeah. And then you were just at South by Southwest.
Yeah. So I did a talk, how to be a manager people want to work for. That's my signature keynote.
Yeah.
And I'm doing that talk again at South by Sydney in October. So really
very cool. Have you been to Sydney before?
No, it's far.
It's a long flight. So that's all. I've been there. I think we did 48 hours. Me and a buddy. He was doing a speaking engagement.
Yeah.
And he had an extra ticket and was like, "You want to come?"
Oh my God.
We missed 3 flights on the way there. It was like the travel nightmare, but it was, it was low risk for me. I wasn't speaking or anything. It was like, whatever, I'm just hanging out.
Go to the beach.
And it was like 48 hours to Australia, and it was a long flight is all I remember.
Well, I got a direct flight. San Francisco goes direct.
Really?
So,
oh yeah. See, we had to go from Maui to Oahu to Sydney, and then he was going to Adelaide. So it was Sydney to Adelaide, and then the next day we went back to Sydney. It was, we were on a plane every day, and I think we were late for missed all of our connections and everything. It was a whole deal. Yeah. Oh man. How did you make the transition when you kind of left the corporate Silicon Valley world? What was the first thing you did after? Yeah. Did you double dip for a while to kind of transition out? What does that look like?
Great question. So, I started by doing consulting with corporate specifically. So I was doing workshops, coaching, trainings, and tapping into my network. So I worked with Google right away, folks at Bank of America. And then interestingly, by joining entrepreneurs or I guess masterminds and meeting other entrepreneurs, people were saying to me like, I need what you're doing.
Yeah, it's that weird transition, right? Where people are like describing their problems and like light bulb goes off. You're like, I do all of those.
Yeah.
Like I do I like those things.
That's right. Like, oh, so setting expectations, all that's boring prairies. I was like, that's my favorite. And that's why we get along so well, because all of that, we have that in common. And so there was a natural progression to broaden what I was talking about and, do work supporting more in that fractional COO for entrepreneurs, business owners, while also doing manager development and team trainings. And then kind of speaking is a little bit in the intersection of that.
How'd you get into the speaking side?
It's funny. It was like my biggest fear ever. I was like, about 10 years ago, if I got up in front of people I worked with in a meeting, I would be like shaking, like you drop something.
Oh my gosh.
Horrible.
I get the bouncy leg, like the uncontrollable knees.
Like somebody on the stage. But it was so bad that I would need, like, if someone said, hey, we need you to do a presentation for the meeting, I would need like 2 weeks to prepare it. I had to memorize it. We have to do so much. And I was like, I cannot pursue any of my goals that I have at all if this is a problem. So there was, I remember this moment really viscerally because I was working on the HoloLens team at Microsoft, and there was an opportunity to be doing demos with some really cool corporate partners. And this was a product I had worked on for a year and a half. I knew about the product, but to describe it to some executive at Nike, I think I was asked to do. I was like, yeah, our VP asked if I could do a demo for an executive at Nike the next day. And I was like, I can't do that. I'm too nervous. Like, I won't be able to be prepared. It's not 2 weeks away. So how are you that? So I said, I never want to say no again. I'm not going to be in that situation ever again. And I signed up the next day for like a Dale Carnegie speaking class. It was awesome. For 8 weeks, you had to give a talk every single week, get up in front of a room. And that was the beginning of this pursuit to get better at public speaking.
Wow.
And I just worked on it, tirelessly. That was about 10 years ago. And including doing a TEDx talk about 4 years ago, which for me was like the equivalent of jumping out of a plane. Sure. From that was to actually, and then I really faced it again head on because I was like, I don't want to get up there and not be able to trust myself that I can get through this without like passing out or something. And then that was this moment where it all kind of, like, I really nailed it on stage, and it kind of obliterated my fear of public speaking because I had faced the ultimate scariest thing, like being in front of this stage in this big moment that I had invested so much time in. And then from that, I did, went on TV news live, which is pretty nerve wracking because you don't know what they're going to ask you. Yeah. They say they're going to ask you, or they were just
to set up
randomly doing it. And just kind of kept going and facing it. And then now, like, I love public speaking.
Oh, it's super cool.
Yeah.
Huh. Well, off camera, we were talking a little bit about hiring and some of the challenges you and I are both hearing.
Yeah.
Let's dig into that a little bit. One of the things I was mentioning to you that we look at when somebody comes to us and they say, hey, we're looking to hire, kind of if they've already gotten to that point where they've identified there's a need for some kind of additional capacity, we use kind of a framework of 5 options, essentially, is what we're looking at. So we look at it through the lens of, do we need somebody part-time, full-time, fractionally, a consultant, or an agency?
Yeah.
And so the kind of different levels of capacity as well as expertise and knowledge. And that's usually kind of how we guide people through deciding which one might make the most sense in the short term versus long term. But I'd be curious to hear like how you guys approach it or what you're hearing when it comes to the hiring, struggles people are going through right now.
Totally. I love that framework. I think the step right before that, I typically ask folks, what's driving you to even think you need somebody? Because I think what I find, and it was more so in the corporate world because it's a little bit easier to secure budget for resources, but was like, stuff's not getting done, or we have this gap or a short-term need, let's hire someone. And I've seen situations of overhiring, and it makes it worse because you actually have a lot of people sitting there. They don't feel like they're not clear what they're doing, and there's a lot of waiting around. With small business owners, it's less so because you have to have quite a bit of budget ready to hire. But I still see people jumping into it too quickly without really thinking, kind of going through that question. Is it short term? Is it long term? Is it to satisfy like this set of objectives? What happens after that? Some of these questions. And then also what I would layer into the framework is what's the level of seniority? Because I see a lot of times folks are like, I'm going to hire director of operations, director of marketing, and they want them to do like all this tactical stuff. And you hire a director, they want a director's salary and they want a team. And that person does not want to do all the little bullshit, right? Along the way. And
it's one of the questions we encourage people to ask is like, hey, when you're interviewing this person, ask them who they would hire next.
Yeah.
Because it's really revealing to see, are they going to start? Because I've seen it happen where this organization we work with, and they're one of the executives, that this has happened twice now. They've turned over this position, I don't know, twice in the last year. And within the C-suite, this person comes in within, I don't know, 2-3 months. They're like, oh, well, we need a reorg and we need to hire and we need to do this. And then doesn't work out. New person comes in. Oh, well, we really need a reorg. It's like, well, we just did that.
Yeah.
I thought.
Yeah. It's obviously not the issue, right? It's not. Well, exactly. And I think I love your question too, because if the first thing they say is, well, I need a team to implement all this, then you're going to need a lot more budget, right? And I think, especially when we have identified, like, even though both of us do operational consulting, I think a lot of people think the first role they want is a director of ops. You probably hear this. And they actually just want like an EA or a project manager or a chief of staff, right? Like, none of those are director of operations. None of those are a COO. And you've put someone that's like a glorified project manager as director of operations, no background in that, no understanding of what that means. And then they're like failing at it and you're mad.
Yeah. Yeah. We make the distinction, like, are they a builder or are they an executor?
Yeah.
And so the analogy I use is like, are they building the race car or are they driving the race car?
Yes. Yeah.
And I think that's really helpful to identify, because I think there's a lot of probably over-titled COOs out there.
Yeah, exactly.
That aren't builders, they're executors.
Yeah.
And to me, that's more of a director level where they're a director of ops and they're running day to day, they're driving the race car.
Yeah.
And I think the challenge is that a lot of organizations aren't big enough to have a full-time builder in the org.
Right.
And that's where there is that need for people like us to come in fractionally or on a consultative basis to say, hey, we just need to build this. It's going to take 6 weeks. It's going to take 3 months. It's whatever. But it's not a long-term position that we're trying to like fulfill for them because they don't need us full time. Right.
They need the scaffolding, and then someone else can And I think then you've hired someone too senior or that doesn't have the expertise, that can't build the scaffolding. You have to hire one of us anyway, right? And then the team doesn't build that competency. I think it's also, you run into this issue of you can't afford to pay somebody if you are asking them to be a C-suite or a director of, right? Like, and you're trying to match it with this, 50, 60 grand a year salary that you have budget for. You have a budget for like a project manager.
Yeah. I had an org the other day. It's like, I don't know, because I always ask questions around like, how many employees do you have total?
Yeah.
How many report to you? And then we do an audit to go, how many actually report to you?
Yeah.
Like, show me your phone, scroll back 7 days and show me your texts and your emails and your WhatsApp and your Slack. And so then we get a real number on how many actually report to you. Because it's, I have a background in EOS, and I always say, like, it's great. We can build the picture perfect accountability chart, org chart, all that. But let's deal in the realities of what's actually going on.
Yeah.
So let's, have the conversation. I met with a guy who was 25 people in the organization. I think it was like 2 or 3 direct reports. I was like, oh, that sounds really streamlined. That sounds really great. Do me a favor. Look back 7 days. He runs through this little exercise for me. 13 people. It's like, sounds like you have 13 direct reports, not 3.
And I love that. I'm going to use that.
And it works so great. I'll give you the next layer is we go, okay, now tell me who instigated it. Did you instigate it or did they instigate it? Because now we kind of know who's the problem.
Yes.
And what we find is that we use it as a bottleneck audit, because what we're trying to get to is who instigated it and what was it about.
Yeah.
Because it usually comes down to 2 things. It's either information or it's decision making.
Yeah.
And what we find is that a lot of times leaders reach down for information and team members reach up for decisions.
Yes.
And so now we have like a really tactical thing to solve, to say, hey, there is a information bottleneck between this person and this person, or this person in this department, or this leader in this section, or whatever.
Yeah.
And then vice versa, we may have a decision-making bottleneck between this person and this department. And so it really clarifies, like, what is it we need to go after?
Yeah. Oh my God. Okay. So I want to pause on this because I think a question that we probably both get is like, why is nothing getting done? Why aren't people listening? Why are people motivated? And it seems like this really murky, abstract thing. Is it just humans aren't motivated right now? Is it because of all the uncertainties of this? And what you've been able to narrow it down to is very, very specifically and simply like being able to diagnose it. And I think that's what we can truly do with all this stuff. But we're not bringing in the right people to do that. Like literally like, and I just wanted to underscore it because that's the importance of this kind of work is you get somebody that thinks that way and they're like, wait a second, all this stuff over here, like, yeah, that's true. But like, here's the problem. This flip is going to solve it. And it actually unleashes everything else. So I love this because diagnosing, yes, like, are we going up for the decision or down for the information? What could one shift, one report, one conversation, one process, one SOP unlock? Now he doesn't have 13 people coming anymore. Now he's maybe to 5 and you have like a little bit of a different problem.
Yeah.
I want to share a similar story with that was I have a client that runs an events agency. They do like huge events for big brands out in New York and like big installations and builds, these kind of like experiential things. And the business owner came to me and said, you know, everyone's asking about titles. Like, this is like, they should just go back to work. Why are y'all asking about titles? Like, I've given them enough raises. We're not talking about this anymore. I said, this is not about titles. This is that people feel whatever their title is not reflecting either, you know, their background expertise or like what they're doing day to day doesn't match that. This is like a recognition issue. Solve that and they won't come back to you asking for titles anymore. Right. And so like it reminded me of your story because I think a lot of times business owners, corporate leaders, we're in the day to day. We're like, you know, trying to figure out, we think there's this mass thing that we can't figure out. We have to fire my whole team, start over. I should do that reorg. And it's like, no, it's this one breaking point.
Yeah.
That with a simple shift, we can actually fix this problem.
Yeah. One of the questions I'll ask people is like, do you think this person could be the person? Because we do a lot of work specifically with like individuals. I typically get pointed at like the COO or the director of ops.
Yeah.
And I'll ask them like, is this your guy? Is this your gal? Like, is this the person you're all in on?
Yeah. And
they're like, yeah, 100%. I trust them. I like them. All these things. It's like, they're just not as motivated as I am financially because they're not an owner. And they're wired a little bit different. So they don't move as fast. And so it's just like, feels like nothing is moving as fast. And so I always say, if I could accelerate their learning curve, get them up to speed a little faster, would you keep them or would you consider replacing them? Because frequently the conversation is, hey, this person got me here, but I have doubts or I have reservations if they're the person to get me to the next level. And I always opt for, okay, well, have we even tried? Like, have you poured into this person? Have you actually given them the support to get to that next level? Or are we just kind of like hoping that they get their trial by fire working in the day-to-day of the business?
It's such a great point. And I think it brings us to expectation setting, right? And that, and giving feedback. I mean, a lot of times I hear, I don't think this person's getting it. They're not cutting it. They're not the right person to get us where we need to go. And I say, okay, well, what expectations have you set? And it's crickets. Okay. So like if we haven't talked about it, we can't really say someone's not ready. And if they have, then it's what feedback have you given them? You know, and if you're like, hey, they're not stepping up, they're not proactive, they're not really, I think, you know, you mentioned they're not as financially motivated. So maybe it's like they don't feel hungry, they're not as invested, right? And it's, well, have they been given permission to do that? I think sometimes people don't know if that's okay to be doing, or they're wondering, am I supposed to just defer to you, especially if you're very much in the weeds.
Yeah. Right? Okay. So we were talking about racy matrices earlier. And if you're unfamiliar with racy matrices, that the A is accountable and it's the person that owns the outcome, right? Makes the decision. So I've been asking people this in a couple of calls I had this week because we've been auditing a couple of orgs and the leader wants some of the feedback. And I asked him, I said, what decisions, like tell me about your role, what decisions do you own? And where do you supersede like the leader in that department? Because what I'm trying to figure out is, again, from a bottleneck standpoint, do all the decisions still filter up to the top? Or what decisions do you truly own that are yours to own, where if you're consulting with the leader in the organization on every single decision, then they're making the decision. Right? And so what things do you own where in theory you supersede them? And it's really revealing to see the people who are like, no, this is my lane. I get to make all the calls when it comes to this. Like, that's what I'm empowered to do.
Yeah.
Versus, oh, nothing. Like, they supersede me on every decision. I'm like, so then you're just like a taskmaster assisting them.
Right.
And I think this is the big problem I see when it comes to everybody's so hot to trot on delegation.
Yeah.
And the distinction we make is we call it delegation versus dispatching.
Yeah.
So dispatching is getting help with tasks. You see this a lot in the entrepreneurial space where people get overwhelmed and they're like, I just need more help. So they bring somebody in, they're like, just help me with everything. And it's kind of that really trendy EA, VA type model right now. It's like, well, just help me with everything. And it's like, you don't actually just need help with stuff. You need people who are going to own outcomes.
Yeah.
And you can, by definition, I argue that offloading outcomes, like giving somebody else permission to own an outcome of something, is truly delegating it, versus just asking for help with a task is everything is still going to get dispatched through you.
Yeah.
And it's not actually going to free you up any, because now you're still responsible for prioritization.
Yeah.
And you're still responsible for decisions, and you're still responsible for outcomes.
Exactly.
And so it feels like this like temporary relief, but it doesn't actually help.
Yeah. I love that. That is so good and so true. I mean, I think this fear around delegating, I think, is why we get stuck in the dispatching, is we don't even stop to think about what is the outcome we would want, how to get there, right? Or we don't know what to even we should be focusing on, right? And I think in many situations, this is what I see a lot in the corporate world is, we go through the ranks, we're an employee, we become a high performer, really, really prevalent in sales organizations, and we're crushing it. So we're asked to be a manager, we're asked to be a leader. And we don't know how to teach that thing. That was intuitive. That was what we did. We loved it. We were awesome. And you worked in sales a lot of your past, right? And so the idea of delegating something would be like, how do I translate what I do second nature? You know what I mean? So then you really are stuck in just dispatching or just, telling people to do whatever, right? And you're never coaching them and bringing that out of them. But I think you've really hit on something around, if they're not truly owning the outcome, what have you actually offloaded? You've just offloaded like a small piece of it where that person's never going to see the value. So when you're worrying about delegating, I don't want to overload my team or just throw things over the fence. That's what the dispatching is, truly, right?
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Okay, I've got an example or a story around this, but I want to hear your thoughts on it from the perspective. I think you really do the communication, the expectations part a lot better than I do, right? We focus a lot on like the performance and the accountability, and clear expectations is the number one thing we point to for accountability. But I want to hear your thoughts on this. So, and you may be familiar with it. They did this study at Stanford, I believe is where it was. And they put people in the corner of a room and they said, we want you to take 10 steps, like in any direction, go. And so the person starts walking, and halfway across the room, they would kick a chair in front of them. And every person would either stop dead in their tracks, or they would change course, like make a 90-degree turn. They would end up somewhere else than where they had initially set off to. Okay. They bring in another group of people and they give similar directions, but they say, we're going to put you in this corner of the room and we want you to end up over in this corner over here. It's 10 steps away. We want you to end up over here. And so people set off on their path. Halfway across the room, they kick a chair in front of them, and every single person either moves the chair, goes around the chair, goes up and over the chair, but they all end up in the corner of the room. And what they were trying to highlight was the difference was in the first group, they gave them the task to do. They gave them the first step to take. And in the second group, they pointed them at the outcome where they needed to end up. And so the argument was, if you give people the destination, they can problem solve and figure out how to get there. But when you don't tell them the destination, they don't know where it is they're supposed to end up.
Yeah.
They start going, and as soon as an objection comes up, as soon as a problem, a challenge, an issue arises, they're like, I don't know what to do. They didn't tell me what to do for this step. This wasn't part of the plan.
Yeah.
And so then they don't know what to do, and they either just stop or they go a completely different direction. And we see this in the business all the time where managers or leaders are like, why the heck did you do that? Or why have you stopped making progress?
Yeah.
And we see it like in the construction or in the trades industry where I always say, if you drive around to your job site at 2:00 and there's a bunch of people standing around, It's because they don't know what the outcome is.
Yeah.
You gave them the direction for the next task. They're thinking 2 hours ahead. They got that thing done. They're not thinking about what the outcome is 2 weeks from now that they could be setting themselves up for to make their own life easier.
Yeah, exactly.
And so I'd be curious your thoughts on this, because I think the communication of it was a hard lesson I had to learn in realizing, oh, I need to do a better job explaining the outcome of where this transaction or where this project needs to end up.
Yeah.
And trust my people to problem solve along the way.
Yeah.
And since then, we've developed language. We call it, like, you have to have guardrails. And you can still paint the dotted line down the middle of the road and say, hey, if it were me, here's how I would do it.
Yeah.
But you can do whatever you want as long as you stay within the guardrails.
Yeah.
And so you can problem solve and be creative and do whatever as long as you end up at the end of the road at this destination.
Yeah.
Here's how I would get started. You don't have to do that. So you are giving them a little bit of guidance to, like, here's the dotted line down the middle of the road, but you have to stay within the guardrails.
Yeah.
And that, I think, allows people some permission to know, okay, I can flex here.
Exactly.
I have somewhat of a trajectory to move along, but like, how do you communicate that better? How do you be outcome based rather than task based when so much of performance is still balanced with measuring tasks and other people getting stuff done?
I mean, I think I love the question. And I think, part of it is really getting everyone on the same page around the outcome above the outcome. So kind of like the global priorities. And so with entrepreneurs, especially through my 90-day COO program where we build out their ops playbook or business Bible, essentially, we first felt like, what is the big picture priority, right? So like if you're trying to hit 4 million in profit this year or 25% profitability or have serve 500 customers or whatever that is, like we set this goal and I honestly advise entrepreneurs to not show your revenue goals with your team because they just think they're working to make you rich. They don't understand the cost of running business.
It's like, oh, there's a lot that goes into that. Right. We don't get to keep all of that.
Yeah, exactly. So like, let's say you decide it's customer satisfaction or something that everyone can rally around. Then I explain, okay, well, for every single role, how do you fit into that? So let me take a med spa, for example. I work with a lot of med spas. Let's say their goal is to hit 30% profitability and have 4.9 stars on Yelp, right? Something like that. Those are 2 North Stars. Well, we go role by role and I say, okay, well, how would the front desk play a part in that? How do the injectors play a part? How do the facial people? How do the people cleaning up, like the prepping the rooms? And we go role by role. So for the front desk, their big metric and their responsibility is rebooking, right? And making sure that they really understand how to be selling the retail. Well, the injectors are making sure they're not just, someone's not coming in, I want Botox here, but they're like, let's look at your whole face. What's the plan? And giving someone a holistic system. That's how they're contributing to the profitability goal. The people cleaning off the machines. Well, you may not, always notice if something's pristine, but you sure notice when it's a mess, right? So like they keep people coming back in the door and they prevent the bad Yelp reviews. So I like to make sure every single role sees this is me and this is the North Star and this is the line I walk to getting there. Now, within that, that's where you can say there's some flexibility around the tasks and the how. But I think, and I really like the idea of having the outcome-based expectations a little bit more granularly role by role. But that's how I start the conversation is what's the big goal that we're all working towards? If it's this profitability goal, maybe we have the thermometer, we're looking at it, we get a big bonus at the end. So we're all really thinking about it. But I don't just go like, well, it's profitability. I don't do sales, not my problem. Because that's the biggest issue, right? We both see with entrepreneurs is you're waking up 3 a.m. every day trying to think about how to bring more business in. And all your employees just think they'll just get that paycheck, whether things go well or not. And it's not the case. So that's been my secret for getting individuals in a business to care about growing it and how you a little bit can flip this thing around. I don't do sales. I don't want to help grow the business. Like you've bait and switched my job.
Yeah.
Right? Like saying, okay, well, Ian, you don't have to be making cold calls, but this is how your role does contribute to the bottom line, right? And so I walk that with each person. It kind of gives that outcome-based expectation setting you're talking about.
That's great because I think that's one of the things I took for granted, having a background in automotive. Like 95% of employees are on a incentive-based pay plan that is tied into the gross profit. We measure everything in gross profit typically of the dealership. And so everybody understands how they contribute.
Right.
Because it's very obvious, right?
Yeah.
And in other organizations, right, that is sometimes not as obvious. And so I'm a big proponent of, we map out, we call it the 7 core functions of how like you generate a customer, how you generate a dollar.
Yeah.
Right. So from branding to lead gen, lead nurturing, sales, fulfillment, delivery, ascension, retention, how that gets done in the business. Like just one, how do we map out our revenue process?
Yeah.
And then allowing people to see how they contribute to that so that they understand how they generate revenue for the business. Because, and I kind of correlate this now to a little bit of like a mission, vision, and values where, hey, if you believe in what we're doing and you're bought in on that, then you should have no problem helping us generate more customers because you believe that we're providing more value than we're taking.
Yeah.
And so I had this happen with a client recently where they were doing a social media initiative and some advertising, and the owner was really bogged down with being in all of the creative, just like tactically having to record all the video content. And I was like, oh, well, you should have this guy help and this head of department and this person. And even though that's not really their job description or their role, it's a 30 seconds here, 60 seconds here. And from a marketing standpoint, it gives us new ad creatives to test. To see, hey, sometimes this like works really well. This works really well. We don't know why, but the algorithm likes it. And so
I love this too for even running like your team meetings, your town halls, your all hands, right? A lot of times leaders hire an executive team, but they're still the only one that's talking. They're still the only one, you know, delivering that mission, vision, values. And you actually want to equip your senior leaders with that you give face time to them, right? Like have the product guy talk about the product vision, not just you. Have the marketing person.
Well, this guy was hesitant about it. So he was like, I feel like my team's going to push back on that because it's like, it's not their job. And I'm like, well, I think we did have a way bigger conversation because I think that's a way bigger culture problem. If people on your team don't want to contribute to the success of the company and the lifeblood of it, then to me, that's a bigger thing. And ultimately what we got to is we had a conversation around kind of like the tail wagging the dog. You've heard that phrase of, hey, we can't make decisions by committee. So we want our team, where he was hung up was he was like, well, but I want my team to collaborate and I want us to work together and this and that. And he was trying to get the team to work together on the vision and the destination. And I was like, no. As the owner, you have to, we call it, you have to have an unapologetic destination. You have to have the thing that whether you're at the dinner table or at church or at the soccer field or whatever, you can say, this is where I'm going. This is where I'm ending up. I don't care who knows it. I'm not embarrassed by it. And you have to be able to be clear on that. And I think that has to come from the leader. And the collaboration piece is in how do we get our team to collaborate to solve problems? Not to set the vision.
No, exactly. But the leaders and the next line and each line below have to understand and be able to articulate it the same way. And I think that's a challenge we can run into where we get stuck, where we have to be everywhere. We're the only one in the content. We're the only one talking to clients or doing the BD and or whatever is the bigger the team gets, the one communicating the bigger stuff, is that we don't actually instill that competency in all our leaders, right? They actually couldn't really relay the vision back to us, right?
Test.
You know what I mean? And so I do a lot of work with larger corporate kind of consulting around how do we cascade that all the way down, right? Everyone needs to understand it. And coming from corporate, where in some of the roles I was in the chief of staff capacity, where we'd have to figure out how do you communicate this vision the VP just set and get everyone all the way down to the line managers. And they don't understand it. I'm going to tell you right now, like you as the executive have been talking about it for months. You have maybe your leadership team gets it, but like every single step beneath, it gets lost and lost and lost. And it's like a game of telephone. And so I think the biggest kind of takeaway from our, this piece of our conversation is it truly is everyone's job to understand that, right? And to be able to relay it back and to be able to, do that internally and externally. Because your employees we're all brand ambassadors nowadays too, especially with social media like you're talking about.
This was something that in the dealership, I think gave us a real competitive edge was there's this old school kind of sales mantra of person, product, place, price. And the idea is you have to satisfy the first three, person, product, and place, before you ever earn the right to talk about price. And so the word I like to use is certainty. So how much certainty does somebody have in the person that they're doing business with, the products that they're purchasing, whether product or service, and then the place, like the company, the storefront, the brick and mortar or whatever.
Yeah.
And what we really picked up on was the symbiotic relationship between the person and the place.
Yeah.
And the way we would summarize it, and we would tell our employees this, was, hey, we are vouching for you by employing you here. Yeah. You are vouching for us by choosing to work here.
Yeah.
And so this relationship, right, when we build credibility with a customer through our brand, it builds credibility for you as a sales rep or as an individual. Vice versa, when you build credibility with the customer, it builds credibility with us as a brand.
Yeah.
And so we took all of our like marketing initiatives, and it was video content, social media content spread across the people in the organization.
Yeah.
And so we actually pushed to try to build their social media presences because of that reciprocal relationship that was created and how much it boosted the personal aspect as well as like the brand reputation.
Yeah.
And in a sales environment, it gave us an edge because normally if you walk into a dealership showroom, you have no idea who you're going to talk to.
Yeah.
But if you've seen this person on social media once a week for the last 6 months, you're like, I feel like I know them.
Yes.
And so it gave us an edge because now from a customer standpoint, it's like, well, I can walk into that store. I have no idea who I'm going to talk to. If I walk into that store, there's some familiar faces. Because
you're already trusting them.
Like, and so I looked at it as like, again, I use the word certainty, but on a scale from like 0 to 100, where are we at in terms of certainty when somebody walks in the door?
Yeah.
And then on the person, it's a 0. And so how can we warm somebody up to the person to jump off at 40%?
Yeah.
Or just something better than 0, where they may know the company, they see reviews online, etc. But who's the person they're actually going to be doing business with and interacting with? Like probably similar to the med spa, where it's like, man, if I know the person and I'm, going to be talking like, small talk with them or I would imagine probably would do well with like dental hygienists even. Yeah. It's like you're going to sit there and talk to them for 45 minutes while you're...
Yeah, or like a hairdresser, right? You get 3 hours in the shift. So you just delivered a masterclass on the reason people should have personal brands, by the way. Like literally, right? Yeah. Is that
but I think more than that, like why it makes so much sense for you to encourage your employees that it's a benefit to the business.
Right. And it's not some extra nuisance thing that they should be doing, that it's actually part of growing the business.
Yeah.
Right?
So then we would use it for ad creatives to test. Yeah. We would boost their posts. Like you would put dollars behind it. We had media. We had a guy who would come in, he'd hear brand ambassador. He would film content, edit content, and it was for all of them.
Well, and so I love that because one pushback I hear from employees is like, I don't want to do sales. I'm not trained in this. I'm not comfortable. And what you've done is that 0 to 100 certainty. You've said, I'm going to make the sales part easier for you that you're not comfortable in. I'm going to get you to 40. Now just be good at your job and explain what you're doing. Right. Mm-hmm. So like, I think by reframing it to employees, and this is like a big one, I think too, around the priorities or expectations, is getting underneath, like, what is the why? Right. We're not just building social media so to have a lot of followers, right? Like, I mean, or likes. It's because this gets people in the door, right? Which means you get paid more, right? Like whatever it is. But I think we can lose the plot on the expectation setting because it seems so obvious, because we've thought about, because of course the business is going to make more money to have employees, like, but there's something under that, right? As well as that, besides just the dollar amount, right? And I think you said by virtue of working there, the employees sort of get it, but I think it is less so these days.
Well, and I think what I found, and this is maybe, hot take or unpopular opinion, is I think everybody's responsible for sales.
Yes, exactly.
So from a mentality standpoint, it drives me up a wall when somebody has that like, oh, well, that's not part of my job. Yeah. It's like, no, it's part of everybody's job because it's like why we exist.
Exactly. And so literally back to hiring, right? I tell all my clients, you got to say that in the interviews and see if they're like, what? If they like say like, what's your process for bringing in new clients? Like, how do you talk about brands you work for? Like, ask open-ended questions that show you if they're like, oh, yuck, sales, they're out. It's a no. It's a no way.
Yeah. And I think mostly it's just like people have a stigma against it.
Yeah.
And so then they don't have a belief in what the company is doing or what the company is selling.
Yeah, exactly.
And it's going, well, that's actually like selling isn't a dirty word. It's actually something that helps deliver more value to people who need the solution to our problem.
Yeah. Right? Like, why are you here? No, I agree. It is part of everyone's job. And I think then it becomes, okay, is that the need for training? Is there a need for clarity? Like, then provide that, right? But yeah.
Okay, when we talk expectations and communication, what are you seeing when it comes to some of the gaps? And particularly, I think with almost this, I don't know if hybrid is the right word, but with so much virtual work being done, and even with people now being back in office, so many meetings still being virtual. I mean, you and I, a lot of what we do is virtual.
Yeah.
And so the people we work with, we're taking up an hour or 30 minutes on their calendar. And I was telling you earlier before we started, is like, I was on a meeting earlier today and somebody was like 2 minutes late and they were like, oh my gosh, I'm so sorry. It didn't go. I'm like, if we were in person, this would not come up.
Yeah.
But because it's on virtual and it's on a clock and this and that, people are sending texts. Are you there? Like, geez.
Yeah. I think there's a few challenges, right? Is just orchestrating people across time zones and locations and responsibilities and different, is a big challenge around time spent in meetings and figuring out all the scheduling and things like that. With return to office, there's conference room space, there's all these things. But I think because so many things have moved to virtual or on, video conference, we've lost the fundamentals around meeting management, I think, in a lot of ways, right? Around pre-reads, around having an agenda, coming away with actions. Like, I think a lot of meetings are being called just to like get people together. I think there's also a lot of pendulum swinging the other way of like, there's too many meetings. Let's figure this out by text or Slack or these things. And then it spins and they never get resolved and people don't pick up a phone call. Like, cause now we're like avoiding speaking to each other.
Yeah.
So I think there's these two challenges, like people not want to speak to people. Like they won't just pick up the phone or get on a meeting. And then too many meetings that don't actually resolve anything. Those are two big issues.
I'm seeing a lot of meetings for the sake of communication.
Yeah.
Like the telltale signs when I see a sync, SYNC, I'm like, this is not productive.
Yeah.
Guaranteed.
Yeah.
This is no agenda. There's no outcome. Yeah. And what it tells me is there's a bottleneck around information that isn't easily accessible.
Yeah.
And so I think there's a ton of time being wasted in meetings that are communication based. I met with a group earlier this week. I said, this felt like it was a meeting for attaboys and updates.
Yeah, exactly.
And that doesn't seem like a good use of an hour for 6 people.
We talk about how expensive is that, right? Each person, you're in the same meetings your managers are in, that your employees are in, like all of you, that could have been one email sent. And the thing you're saying around it's solving or it's trying to address the communication gap. People often say, well, it's because my team members don't read their emails. Well, that's part of their job.
Yeah, that's a
better. They should read the emails of their Slack, or I'm too many emails. And I mean, like, that's a culture you create, that it's acceptable to like not look at anything and be like, tell me all the information when I come to the meeting. Mm-hmm. That shouldn't be how it works.
Right.
Sorry. And so I think it's true. Like, if like every meeting should have a purpose. Same thing with like the outcome-based goals and expectation. Mm-hmm. Are we making a decision? Are we unblocking an issue? Is it a brainstorm? Like maybe it's a kickoff, a pre-mortem, like that's fine. But like then have guardrails on how it's going to go. You know what I mean? Like I'm an advocate for pre-mortems and post-mortems, but they go like this. For a post-mortem, what went well? What could have gone better? What will I do differently next time? That's the meeting and you're out of there and there's actions. Yep. Right? So like, I think that really has to be communicated. The flip side that I was saying around an avoidance to like, where it's like, I'll just text them, I'll just email and just like spinning and getting confusing and things like that. That's, I think we need to instill just in the same way culture on having meetings have a purpose around how do we resolve things quickly? When does it flip into a meeting? When does it flip into a phone call, right? Yep. How do we unstick when there's a lack of clarity and not have an issue really fester and get worse because someone was trying to do their job while they were like driving and texting. You know what I mean? Like a lot of that these days too.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of low-hanging fruit on being specific.
Yeah.
So I am a absolute stickler for the verbs that people use.
Yeah.
So if you look at like a team's action items or to-dos or, priorities and the verbs are really vague, I'm going to review this thing.
Right.
How do I know when that's done?
Yeah.
And how do I know if it's done well?
Yeah.
And that's usually the two questions I ask is like, how do we know this is done? How do I know when I can check the box? And then how do I know how well it was done?
Yeah.
like review. Gosh, I was just on one. There was like every single one of there. It was like, I'm going to review. I'm going to update. I'm going to go through. I'm going to follow up with. I'm like, I have no idea if any of these things are done.
Yeah.
And it makes it, the crux of it is I can't hold somebody accountable to the outcome because those are all effort-based things.
Yeah, right.
And so we want to have outcome-based language that makes it really specific as to what is getting done and not done and how well.
When. Yeah.
Yeah, and by when. And so that we know, okay, can I check the box or not? Otherwise, like what I'll say sometimes to a group in a meeting is, hey, just to be clear, I'm holding you accountable to the outcome, not to the attempt.
Yeah.
Not to the verb, not to the effort or the task. Because while we do measure, like within a scorecard, we may measure some task-based things to try to get an idea of like leading indicators in the business.
Yeah.
When it comes to accountability, it has to be outcome-based.
Yeah.
And so we use a framework, we call it the 4 components of clear expectations. Because I believe that any accountability problem comes back to one of these 4 things not being articulated clearly when it comes to expectations.
Yeah.
And so it's just priority level. Is this high, medium, low? And ultimately what we're trying to find is if we get overextended, do we have a way to objectively measure capacity?
Yes.
So that if we get overextended, we know what to drop and we're all on the same page and we can start to forecast deadlines because we're never in perfect equilibrium in terms of like, if you think like supply and demand, we're never in perfect equilibrium with the amount of capacity our team has and the amount of work we have to do.
Yeah.
And so of course we always want people to be busy.
Right.
Because we want to have more work than we do capacity. But where people start to, maybe freak out a little or they start running the business off of pure feeling is when certain employees, their mental clock goes, oh, I know that I have 3 weeks worth of stuff to do. I've got a backlog of 3 weeks that needs to be done in 3 days.
Yeah.
And that's when they panic. But that also can feel similar sometimes to having 3 days worth of stuff that needs to be done in 3 days because it's 3 days out and you're not done right now.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so how do we start to measure that? So priority is one, deadline is the other, and just getting specific on like, hey, you need this on Friday. Is that beginning of day Friday, end of day Friday?
Yeah.
Does the end of day end at 5 p.m. or does it end at midnight?
Yeah.
Like, what does that actually look like? Definition of done.
Yeah.
Which is just, are we on the same page with what done looks like? Which we already kind of talked about with the specifics. And then the last piece is duration. And I think this is the biggest thing that people overlook. If you were to put together like a basic Gantt chart, you need to know the duration of how long things are going to take.
Yeah. Yeah.
And when you start to include that or you start to get feedback on it, what we encourage is you can assign the first 3. You have to ask for feedback on duration.
Yeah.
So you have to ask, hey, Leah, how long do you think that's going to take? Based on how you've outlined the definition.
And it's not all the days till the deadline.
No.
Right? It's not all the hours in the day, right?
Yeah, that would be a bad plan. Because what this conversation does too is it allows you to go, okay, how long is that going to take? Well, it's going to take me 8 hours. Yeah. Okay, and it's due tomorrow. Okay, do you have 8 hours worth of capacity between now and then? Well, no. Okay, this is a bad plan.
Yeah.
Let's come up with a better plan. Or somebody goes, it takes me 5 minutes.
Yeah.
It's like, okay, well, let's plan for most likely, not best case scenario. So most likely, is there some phone tag involved? Is there some back and forth? Okay, so it probably isn't 5 minutes. It's probably 30 minutes spread out over the course of 3 days.
Yeah.
And so let's plan for that.
Yeah.
And if we address all those things ahead of time, it makes accountability on the back end really, really easy.
Yeah.
And to your point with like efficient meetings, this works well in conversation. It works well in a weekly meeting.
Yeah.
It also works well on a daily basis. So I do this with my EA every day.
Yeah.
And I have an incredible EA. She's an absolute rock star badass. But we have just developed a really good cadence and system that is so streamlined to where I'm able to give her outcomes.
Yeah.
And the way that we articulate it is she's responsible for clarifying those 4 things with me.
Right.
So if she's not clear on a deadline or a definition of done, it's her responsibility to get clarification on something before we move forward so that she can make sure we're organized, don't miss deadlines and all that.
Yeah.
And so our daily meeting is 10 to 15 minutes of I start, hey, what do you need?
Yeah.
And she asks me, when this thing you put in my project management tool, when do you need that by? Hey, what does done look like for this thing? Hey, this I think is going to take this long, so do you want me to shift these things?
Yeah.
And so then we can get on the same page really quickly.
Yeah.
And then we switch. And I go, okay, here's what else I need and I pile more stuff on her plate.
Yeah.
And I'm like, okay, here's what I need. This came up today. This came up yesterday. I forgot to tell you, whatever. And then the last couple minutes, if there's any time left, is just, hey, here's other stuff to make you aware of. This is what's coming up, a week from now, 2 weeks from now,
she can
whatever.
plotting it in a little bit.
So it's just has some awareness, but it's so easy to have that clear outcome, like you were saying, like a postmortem that you said.
Yeah.
I'm used to construction industry. They say post-con.
Oh yeah.
It's like, so in a post-con, hey, what do we do? I call it like reviewing game film.
Yeah.
Right? The defense is going to sit down and watch game film from the week before, because what it allows us to do is one person can make a mistake, but all 10 can learn from it.
Exactly.
And so we don't have to make the mistake 11 times.
Yeah.
We can make it once and the whole team learns from it. And now hopefully we never make that mistake.
Exactly. I want to go back to that accountability framework.
Yeah.
There's one piece, and I don't even know if it's needed in your process because it's so dialed in. But one thing that I've found tends to be missing with accountability is actually the follow-up. What happens when it's missed, right? Like we have a perfect system, and I don't think it's likely to show up with your EA because you have the close communication. But I think with maybe in agencies or things where it's a little more flexible, right?
Yeah.
We're like, we missed the timeline, or we went over budget, and like
this is where that deadline duration come into play. Because if we make it really black and white to where, can I check the box or not?
Yeah.
Was it done or not done within the definitions that we set, the parameters that we set? It may be my fault for not setting better parameters.
Yeah.
Right? Budget, whatnot. Yeah. Or it makes the accountability a really easy conversation to go, well, you knew what the priority was. You knew what done looked like. You knew when it needed to be done by. And so help me understand how this 30-minute thing didn't get done in the last 7 days.
Yeah.
And then if it happens multiple times, you're like, hey, and that conversation changes to, hey, it's been multiple weeks where this 20-minute task hasn't gotten done. At the end of the day, like this makes me start to question your ability to fulfill this role within the company or this function within your role. Yeah. And I'm going to have to find somebody else to do it. And so it's one of those things where those hard conversations don't feel like they're coming out of left field. Exactly. They're not a surprise to anybody.
So you re-anchored with the 4-part framework, literally.
Yeah.
You re-anchored the expectations, and then you gave feedback. You gave them a chance to course correct, and then you gave a kind of a, okay, where are we at? Which is like the literal, this is the textbook, the one-on-one, how to like get your team members performing or make the decision, are they a fit, right? And so I think we've both said, if you're feeling like, I don't know if people are good or not, or they perform or they want to be here, it's like, none of these have to be questions. You just have the conversations like you just said, right? It's like when I said, have you set expectations? Have you given feedback? It's what you ran through. Like that's the script to apply. Literally, it's not unclear. Just like with the decisions being made up and the information being down, I think I just want to like underscore, I'm sure wrapping up, it's like these are simple yet specific actions that implement on your team that unlock high performance, that actually turn the whole game around. Like I said, this, it's just like everyone's not motivated. I don't know how to hire a revolving door. Because what people come to me all the time is with these like ambiguous, it feels like just like, I don't even know where to start. And why I just love talking to you and these, because it's so frameworked, is every single thing has a root cause. And you sort of like pause, take a step back, you look at it like a map, and it's like, okay, like let's go here, let's go there. There's actually a solution for all these things.
I say my superpower is finding the needle in the haystack that moves the needle.
Yes.
How do we find the thing that makes the difference?
Exactly. And I think that's where we're like pointing it to this, like it's an existential crisis, and it really isn't. You know what I mean? Like I think there's a lot of stuff going on in the world, a lot of stress, and yet the issues people are coming to us are not existential, right? That's like, they're actually very solvable. They don't take a lot of time. They don't take a lot of money. They take just doing it. And they're simple. You know?
It's the little incremental things, but it's daily, it's weekly, it's the extra 30 seconds in every conversation that compounds over weeks and months to create a high performing team.
Exactly. And the thing, like, just to underscore around, if someone has dead time between things, like how do they know what to work on next? Like that's because they understand the mission, the vision, the values, the priorities. They have a big picture. They always know. No one should ever be unclear about what to be working on next in any kind of role. They shouldn't be sitting on the job site like, well, But because that's a product of, not knowing what the plan is, not having, been given autonomy to move forward, right? Someone saying, I need to check everything before you move on, like where we don't want to have command and control, like, because then that is where we become the bottleneck.
Yeah. Okay. One of the last couple of questions I want to ask you, and because one of the things you brought up with expectations and the gaps in communication is when there is some of maybe the ambiguity around priorities, it's really easy for politicking to creep in, where people are positioning themselves to demonstrate how much they're doing rather than it's kind of like instead of demonstrating what's getting done that's moving the ball down the field, it's just showing what's being done. It's like for that attaboy's sake.
In corporate, we called this effort versus impact.
Yeah.
And it was a really devastating situation to be sitting in a performance review meeting and people said, well, they did a lot of stuff, but did it matter? And that broke my heart because actually that in that setting was a product of people not being able to articulate their impact. And that is something you need to teach your employees is like, if someone says you did a lot of work, but did it matter? Did it move the needle? Like you're not actually doing.
You probably didn't articulate the priorities to them.
Yes, exactly.
Because if they knew what they were, they would lean towards making an impact.
And they wouldn't bullshit it and say like, oh, I was strategically doing this. It's like, but they'd understand why their work fits in the bigger picture. So if we go back to that med spa example, if someone just said like, oh, well, I like the med tech that cleans the room, like, well, I picked up all this garbage today, like whatever. If they say, hey, like, today was a really, really busy day. We had like 45 patients and like, so I turn over these rooms in this amount of time. I was able to make some efficiencies here. Like you can have picked up garbage sound strategic, right? Literally. But you have to do it in the context of what is our vision, what are our priorities. And so I think what people get stuck in is saying, I was busy, I checked all my boxes, I did my tasks, but like they don't understand the bigger picture. So like they're actually shooting themselves in the foot around any career progression, any getting a raise or a bonus if you're giving people that based on above and beyond. Which
and you hear it because they're frustrated.
Yeah.
It's like they're frustrated because of all the stuff they're doing, and then the leader's frustrated because they're not doing the right stuff.
Exactly.
It's like, well, who's telling them what stuff to do?
Right. So it's a communication gap in both ways, right? Like our team members need to understand how to connect the dots back. They need to be paying attention when we say what the vision is. They need to be listening. Yeah. And that's the basic, I think, part of the feedback you're saying, part of the expectation setting, part of the 4 parts is like, part of your job is living and breathing this mission and thinking, how can I do this in a better way? And my hot take, controversial opinion is like, I don't think we should give people raises and bonuses if they're just showing up for work and like doing bare minimum. I don't think so. Because like coming from corporate, that's not how I got to raise or bonus. You had to do so much more than you ever like to get a 1% raise at Google. You had to kill yourself, right? I think in the heyday it was 7%, but not guaranteed, right? But like it was not an expectation. You know what I mean?
I had a mentor who used to say, "Your raise becomes effective when you do."
So good, right? And so I think like we have to, people need it's not just checking the box and finishing something, you know what I mean? But you can't expect people to care more if you haven't instilled that, right? So it is this two-way street.
Yeah. Yeah. You brought up something that the way we articulate it to the founder or like the leader to help them wrap their mind around this is we say there's strategy. And I think like in terms of like an algebra equation. So it's like we have strategy times execution equals results.
Yeah.
And a lot of people come to us for results. Like the number one thing I typically see, I'm sure you see the same thing, is they want performance and they want accountability.
Yeah.
And it's like, okay, there's like 5-6 things we have to talk about before we can even talk about that. But yeah, sure. It's kind of like that need versus want thing. It's like, I know you want this, but here's what you need in order to get that. And so the way we explain it is like there's strategy, there's execution, and then there's the results. If you don't get the results that you want, we need to know, is it because of the strategy or is it because of the execution? And so the way that we explain it is the leader, the executive team, the C-suite, the founder, they're responsible for the strategy. The execution, the team is responsible for.
Yeah.
And so we want to measure execution, and we don't want to beat them up over implementing the wrong strategy.
Yeah.
Which if all we do is look at the results, then we're going to say, well, hey, these results weren't what we wanted. Well, if they executed 100% what we told them to do, then that's our fault, not their fault.
Exactly.
And so what we say is we want to know that the execution was 100% and make that, this is my algebra example, is we want the execution to be the constant and not the variable.
Yeah.
We want the strategy to be the variable so that we can constantly refine it and adapt it.
Yes. And this is where the outcome piece is so critical because you can see quickly if it's happening or not, right? Like that's why I love what you're saying around the outcome-based expectations is that, hey, you're not like, a year went by. Like, what? You know what I mean? Like you're saying, okay, we got this outcome. Was this what we wanted? Was we intended? Did this move the needle in this way? Right. So like, even with that EA daily conversation, you're saying like, okay, like let's say you're having her execute on, I don't know, social media or something, like if she's done that and it didn't do the thing, right? It wasn't because she like tried to like, like in this vague way.
There's no attempts that we're judging.
I think that's so critical. And I love that piece too. You had mentioned in the beginning around if there's a lack of clarity around roles. I think it gives people a very clear ownership of, this is where I'm operating. We can get our leaders involved in that piece. People should be informed in both directions again, but like, this is what you're responsible for. The leader should not be in the execution. Otherwise, you're not really leading, right?
Yeah.
And so I think, but no, I love that.
I do a bit of work with a couple guys that are former SEAL team members. And it's that philosophy of like, there has to be somebody who's standing back, who's surveying the whole field, who can call out like directional change, what needs to happen next.
Yeah.
Which if you're the leader executing head down, you can't do that.
Yeah. You literally won't see it. I want to share an analogy. It's like, it's loosely related. Don't we talk about say my husband said this the other day because I was trying to say like, okay, so all the stuff that we talk about, kind of to wrap us up, the business owners, team leaders listening could say like, yeah, like, I guess I could figure that stuff out eventually. Right. And so this analogy was so beautiful. It was like, okay, imagine yourself, business owner, and you're raking a pile of leaves. You're in the Midwest, all the trees, it's like leaves everywhere. And all these leaves are dollars. Okay. You can make a big pile and you can pick some of those dollars up and you can hold those. But all the other ones around you are leaves that you don't like, we provide the bag. Like we're actually cleaning the rest of it. So yes, you can pick up some of these things. You can listen to this. You can take some notes. And I took some notes from you. I love the delegate dispatch. I'm like, remember that. But if you try to do it on your own, you will only get this amount. Right. And so like, this is why you have to bring in more support if you're struggling with this, because you have a whole field of leaves that people like us can help you pick up and put in the bags, and we'll actually make sure you've cleaned up every single one from the field.
Love that.
I was like, Ian will love this.
I love a good analogy.
I know. I was like, I just use sure it's like sort of related, not totally.
That's terrific. Oh, that's great. Okay. What's next for you? What do you have coming up?
Yeah.
What are you working on?
Yeah. So I mentioned my 90-day COO is a program where I support entrepreneurs and business owners in mapping out their team playbook, which is essentially a lot of the things that we talked about here, where you are picking up the rest of those leaves and setting up these systems. I think it's similar to a lot of the work that you do, a little bit more on the kind of initial set of processes that folks need.
Yeah. Who's the best fit for you? Like, do you typically look for like a company size, employee headcount, dollars, virtual, in person, brick and mortar,
it's
corporate entrepreneur?
I would say it's for entrepreneurs, business owners with probably about 5 to 25 employees.
Okay.
Because I do think at a certain point over that, you really should have like an ops leader that's really running this. So, and it's to build up that competency inside of your team.
Will you ever come into an org that's bigger than that and maybe just help one department that still fits within that size?
Yeah, exactly. So in that case, typically what I find is manager training is needed, right? And so a company that's larger, that's where I focus both with smaller businesses or corporate teams on really building up competencies around their managers.
They promoted the person who was really good at doing the thing, who maybe has never been a manager before and never been equipped to do it.
Yeah. So that's a huge part of my work. My book that came out this year, The New Manager Playbook, and then I'm launching a digital program for any company with 20 or more managers. They get access to this for a year. So it's like super comprehensive, really lightweight. I wrote the book, I made the program and the video. It's just like very, very comprehensive.
Well, and what I love about that is it's like it's shared language. If everybody goes through it, everybody's speaking the same language, is the same terminology.
Yeah.
Like we're going to communicate better.
Exactly. Right. And I think it's, nobody has time to be training managers for 6 months, go away, do this thing. It's awesome. It'd be great if they could do that. But this is a real deep dive to be able to hit that sort of foundational level.
What kind of capacity do they need? Is it like an hour a week, an hour a day?
It can be completed in about 4 to 6 hours.
Oh,
so
that's
it's
great.
designed, it is like an intensive version of my book where they learn how to hold people accountable, give feedback, set expectations, career conversations, really build up a motivated culture with worksheets, exercises, like that how-to piece, like just within hours.
Oh, that's great.
Yeah.
Because I think that's so much of the pushback I hear is when the person is running day to day in the business, like I don't have time.
Nobody's time. Yeah.
Yeah. Like I can't do a all day intensive once a week or once a month.
Right.
Like we can't afford to shut down the company.
Exactly. So this was a solution. I actually co-developed it with a former lecturer from Stanford who does all this big time kind of conflict mediation, negotiation trainings and stuff. So like she and I brought this together. Like what would be the ultimate manager training?
Wow.
Yeah.
Super cool.
So super excited. That's called the New Manager Playbook Program.
Okay.
Yeah. So that's coming out. Well, it's already.
Where would people go to find it?
My website, liagarvin.com,
Okay.
or newmanagerplaybook.com. You can schedule a demo. We'll walk you through it. Get you going.
Perfect.
Yeah.
And then where can people find you online?
Yeah, find me at liagarvin.com, LIAGARVIN.
Awesome. And we'll be sure to link it below too.
Or
LinkedIn, Instagram, same?
LinkedIn is great. Love to hear what people thought about this. And then my podcast, the New Manager Playbook podcast. So the whole system is building great leaders. New Manager Playbook podcast talks a lot about, very similar to what you and I talked about today.
Yeah.
Kind of diving into a specific.
I'm a listener. You're tactical.
Yeah, I'm tactical. I love tactical.
It's great.
So those are the places. But I think, I'd say if you really want to build up your capacity of your managers or as a manager, New Manager Playbook program is really going to be game changing because it's fast.
Awesome. Yeah. Super cool. Well, thanks for being back again. I love every time you come to Maui, I'm like, yes, I know I'm going to get to see Lia. We'll probably get together, record something, do something fun. So
me too. Thank you so much.
Thanks for coming back. And we'll talk to you on the next one, I guess. We'll plan on it.
Yes. Love it. Thank you.
Awesome. Thanks.